Hi, I have my final exam for sociology, and I have to make a short video presentation. Sociologist I want to talk about, what kind of sociologist, is Karl Marx. I think that Karl Marx has taught me a lot. It's funny because I grew up in an apartment. I grew up in a time where my mom was alone. She had to work really hard to provide for me and for my sister. I just remember being so frustrated growing up. I was never quite sure why we had to do it, why we had to work so hard constantly to the bone at this idea of eventual success. But it was never happening. I read Marx for the first time when I was like 11, I think it was, and it affected me deeply, very deeply. I think that the biggest thing about Marx that I really took away was that the true genius of capitalism is that it remakes us in its image and its structure, right? If it was just about money, capitalism would have collapsed in the Great Depression or the housing bubble. But it's not about money. It's never been solely about money. The genius of capitalism lies in the hearts and the minds of the people. When we socialize people, to connect their self-worth with productivity. And Marx, wasn't able to predict iPhones and girl bossing and influencers and everything that's happened, AI. He couldn't predict all of that. But what he did know is that capitalism is encroaching, and it roots itself in people all the time, constantly. And it really, really affected me. I think his ideas are becoming more and more and more important. I think that part of the thing is AI, right? I think that AI is a very important tool. You will never be able to convince a wealthy person not to use AI. You can't. So I think that we have to destigmatize that use, because it's going to really disrupt the job market, the economy. And I don't think that's necessarily bad. I envision a world where we're able to pursue our own hobbies, spend time with our families more often, as opposed to just working ourselves to death. You won't be able to get away with not working, but working for our communities, growing food, working with one another, as opposed to wealthy people. I think that it becomes more and more important. This idea of this inevitable revolution where capitalism will hit its limit, and it is. But I think that the reason we call it late stage capitalism is because it's a terminal diagnosis. It's going to die. And I think that what Marx predicted was very correct. Not everything. I don't agree with every single thing that he said. Specifically with the mechanics of communism. I think it's just like capitalism and any vacuum, a political system works perfectly. I think that in practice, communism as the answer is not necessarily how it works. But I do agree with his theoretical perspective overall. And I think it's going to be a time of change. I think history is kind of illegible and when you're in it, when it's happening. And it's not really till after that you have a better perspective and a better way to orient yourself in what's going on. I think that, another one, we didn't really talk about it too much in class, but his conflict theory really affected me. It's part of why I wanted to study sociology when I first heard it in my freshman year, my intro to soc class. I think it's fascinating. I think it's fascinating, this idea that the largest mechanism for genuine change is found in this natural clash that we have with one another. And I definitely wholeheartedly agree with it. And I think that the time is coming where I think Marx's ideas are very important to learn. And I think the reason is that they're going to be reflected in modern society very soon. I talk about it all the time at work. I talk about Marx constantly, because I just see the proletariat, the commoners. And I also work in like a snooty place, so there are some petite bourgeois that come through. Not very many, but there are. And I love to talk about it with them, because there's a lot to be said for the dispersion of the proletariat as, you know, a tactic. I don't know if it's like necessarily completely intentional by every single person, bourgeois, but it's intentional somewhere. And it keeps inequality in place without really checks or balances for it. Yeah, I really like Marx's ideas of working. I like his ideas of alienation, which is what we did talk about in class. It's fascinating how all-encompassing his ideas were. It wasn't, which is kind of just like capitalism. It wasn't just about, you know, he wasn't an economic theorist to the bone in that way. It wasn't just about the mechanics of capitalism or communism. It was about the people and how they interact with these systems, how we're put through this game, as opposed to like questioning the rules of the game. He was questioning why we were in the game in the first place. And that led to such a broader understanding of where we're at as a society here. Yes, I really like Marx, and I think everybody should learn him. And that's how Sue sees it. I don't know if you've seen Glee, but that's a Glee reference.